Are you a sports bettor frustrated with an odds screen that only provides one view into book sharpness, or worse, an algorithm where you don't even know what the sharp books are? Watch this video and I'll show you how we do it at A-Train Station, taking it to another level. Welcome to The Advantage. I'm A-Train Bets, and I use my brain to make bets. In this video, we're going to look at a new feature called Wait by Hold that we have here at A-Train Station. What this is us saying, hey, maybe there's times where one book isn't sharp across everything. Maybe some markets are more dynamic. Maybe a lot of the markets are more dynamic. Wouldn't it be nice if a book would tell us how confident they are in their lines? Well, the fact is that with Hold, they do. Hold is what a book charges to offer both sides of a market. You may have heard this as width. Width is the price difference. Hold is the percentage difference. Now, what makes Hold so valuable, and we have another video that covers this detail, is Hold is better than width because Hold is percentage normalized versus price normalized. That Hold can then be compared against different levels of underdogs and favorites. Hold is also what we use as a proxy for book confidence, because that's how much they're charging to offer this market. When they're less confident, they're going to ask for more because they need a bigger premium for less certainty. When they have lower Hold, they're going to be more confident in the lines that they're setting. And because of that, we can say, hey, well, maybe they have a better feel or more dialed into this. Now, it's not as simple as just saying we're going to play that blindly, but it's an interesting look. And because of the advanced architecture that we have at A-Train Station, we're going to be able to use Wait by Hold as the foundation of the searches that we do for positive EV plays. Right? So I want to show you a couple things. So we're going to come in here. We're looking at the book weightings, right? So in A-Train Station, you can set whatever you want for different book weightings. And what that is the weightings are how sharp are books in various different contexts. And this is useful because we don't always know who's got the best lines, but we know there's certain patterns and there's certain ways we might want to look at it. And when we can look at things from multiple different perspectives and they start to align, then we can make our decisions more confidently. Well, in this case, we have what is a market EQ. So what that means is it's a broad-based view. A lot of books are going to have weightings in this, but they're all going to be the same. They're just going to be a 1. And the reason I do that is that I want to use this for Wait by Hold. So the other thing you need to know is that we're going to do a min weight for search of 6. And I've already run the first search. Again, we cover book weightings in a separate video. So on our pregame search, I've already run a search and found a couple plays that I think are interesting. But the key to this is that you just click on Wait by Hold. And what this is saying is instead of using any of the values that you had up in this book weighting screen, what you are going to do is we're going to say who's got the lowest hold in the market, and let's use that as the best view. And anything within a percentage of that, we're going to treat as a slightly less high view, which is interesting. So let's go to this first one. We have a Josh Giddey points over and under 14.5. And we're going to use this as the example to kind of walk through what's going on. So what we have here is we have a scenario in which DraftKings we have an under on a player prop, which is something that we just generally like. We like unders at DraftKings. You probably do too. In this case, you see a fairly decently aligned market, but you see that Pinnacle, who is normally one of the sharpest books that we use, they're rocking a 6.58% on their hold. Well, that is a pretty high hold, even for a player prop. That's a pretty high hold. The Pinnacle's like, we're not that confident in this. But you've got this Betway book, which is very similar in some case it's very similar to Pinnacle, within a few points, but has a much lower hold. Betway's like, I got this, y'all. I got this. We're offering 5%. DraftKings over 1% higher. BetMGM over 2% higher. And you see DraftKings, we know that they tend to fade towards overs anyway. And so this kind of fits that mantra, right? You'd see early in the season, Josh Giddey goes under 14.5, 70% of the time, going back to last year as well. But so the stat support there is fine. It doesn't hurt anything, right? 70% is bigger than 50%. We need to win this bet 50% of the time to break even. Obviously at a plus 100, that's 50%, right? But we're saying historically he's done it 70% of the time. That's only good news, right? So we'd see this and we say, okay, well, this is very good. And you can see the market alignment. Well, what this allowed us to do is to have more confidence in the read. And it shows like, hey, a best case scenario of Betway, who is saying we are more confident than everybody else. We're more confident in our line than anybody else is. Now, do I believe them or not? I don't know. I don't really know anything about Betway. But when I look at this quantitatively, this tells me very directly. And what I like about this is that I'm not using my feelings around who do I think are sharp on NBA player props. No, this is a more consistent baseline to start your analysis from to break down the market. And when we see this, because a lot of times I'm going to be filtering out anybody that's got over 6% hold in terms of my search. If I would only use Pinnacle here, I wouldn't have even seen this play. If I go here and say, I want to use my Sharp EQ weighting, we'll say, okay, so that's going to give me underdog and Pinnacle. If I hit save there, and I don't know if this line could have moved, so just keep that in mind. Minus 120, minus 130. Yeah, it looks like the line has moved from what we had originally. So at plus 100, when we had first brought this up, this line was golden. And basically now the line has moved because I've been sitting here talking about it. And you see DraftKings has now moved to minus 110. So we were making the right read based on Betway because we would have already had, 10 points of value in that from where they are now. So that's one way of looking at it. But this is what is nice about this is that it removes your feelings from the equation when you're searching for positive EV plays. Now, what's nice too is because we at A-Train Station have the ability to set different weighting sets, what we can find ourselves doing is having less reliance on certain books, even when they're low hold. So there's sometimes when I'll be like, I don't even care if there's a low hold from, we'll call it DraftKings. Even if they had the lowest hold, I might be like, I'm not necessarily going to equate that to confidence because I don't know if they even know how confident they are. That's a reasonable assessment. But what this does is it gives us another tool in our arsenal to break down these markets and say, hey, more flexibly, where are there interesting plays? And that's something that we always preach about when it comes to our book weightings. It's not about a strategy. It's just about, hey, where am I going to go fish for interesting? When I fish for interesting, I can maybe sometimes find good plays. Now, this next one I love. This next one is fantastic because what this is, a lot of times, I'm going to have both Circa and Pinnacle as my sharp books. These could offset each other. I might not see anything here. But a lot of times what I'll see is you have Pinnacle, who we all know is a pretty sharp book. This, when they have the lowest hold in the market and you see Circa rocking what we call lazy lines at minus 110 on both sides, we say, okay, look at the market alignment here. Everybody is here, except Circa's like, what? We're to this. And when you see arbitrage between Pinnacle and somewhere else, a lot of times I'm going to go make that bet somewhere else. Right? So this is another one where because we are factoring in who's got the lowest hold, Pinnacle has every right to earn it when they are confident. When we compare that to what they had before with 6.58, we're not going to treat them like the sharpest book of the market here. It's still aligned in the read, but it wouldn't be as confident. This is a scenario where I can feel a little bit more confident going into it, running off of Pinnacle, knowing that the entire universe seems to be right in line with it. Okay. Finally, this is the one that I think is really the most interesting. So what we have here is San Antonio Spurs, Houston Rockets, another player prop for Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul hasn't done this very much. There's a lot of things in basketball where things ebb and flow or whatever. So you got to look at the market. It's still early in the season when we're recording this. But what we see here is an opportunity at Hard Rock to make a play at minus 110. And you could see this Novig and FanDuel as the two lowest hold in the market. Now, Novig, if you're not familiar with them, they're a new sweepstakes model betting exchange. They're effectively an exchange that is kind of in late 2024 is an upstart, growing quickly, but offering pretty reliable lines a lot of the time. Now, FanDuel, not so reliable. I wouldn't typically use FanDuel here as the sharpest book, because FanDuel has a rich history of not being great at setting lines, but they can be hit or miss on their NBA props. So they probably take more NBA prop action than anybody. I'm not going to just totally disregard them, but it's a complex environment, right? But when you can see this, hey, they're telling me, hey, Train, we're confident in this number. Do I believe them? Not necessarily, but do I believe them when Novig's also very confident in this number? Well, maybe. But what I do here is when I say, hey, show me. And what I did for this is I went into here and I selected my sharp weightings, my sharp EQ, because I wanted to show BetOnline, Pinnacle, and Underdog is what I would normally have here. And I don't want to refresh it because these lines may have moved by now. But what you see here is that if I just went with my traditional sharp book, and granted, there's alignment in this market, but when I look at this and I say, well, these sharp books, I mean, this is a one-sided line from Underdog, so that doesn't give me anything. You got a 6.49, another high hold from Pinnacle, and they're not necessarily the best on props. You've got Bet Online, who's at a 5.84, still, more than these two. But it gives us a totally different perspective. Now, do you want to go play the over at a FanDuel like everybody else out there? I don't know about that. Now, you could say, I've got the read here and I know the news, and I think that Chris Paul's going over 1.5 on the threes tonight. That could very well be the case. But what we're doing here is we're not saying that wait by hold is the only approach. What we're saying is that it surfaces really interesting plays. This is an interesting play. This is an interesting read on a person who has some variance in a market. So if you're going to side with FanDuel and Novig, or you're going to side with our traditional sharp books, what are you going to do? In this case, I will tell you, I would probably, if gun to my head, I'm playing the Chris Paul threes under at Hard Rock for two reasons. One, I don't know that FanDuel's not that good at, that's too many negatives, but I don't know that FanDuel is unreliable when it comes to player props. Novig has definitely been very sharp in these early days, and I'm not getting a ton of confidence from what I'm seeing from the rest of our traditional sharp books. And we're factoring in Bet Online here. Keep in mind, FanDuel's at 0.9 here, Bet Online's at 0.6. And you can always adjust this too. If you're like, I don't believe it, I want to discount it or whatever, you can just do your wait by hold and it'll recalculate and bring it all in. You can adjust it from there. You can adjust all of these things. That's the flexibility at A-Train Station that nobody else has. And so you can mold this, change this, look at different perspectives, get all the data in front of you. And this keeps getting better and better over time as well. And so what we have with this, I think this number's just too good. I just think it's too good. And what I see is when we see arbitrages with these other books, you see these numbers kind of outlying everybody else. I feel pretty strongly that you've got some value on Chris Paul threes under 1.5. I could be wrong. I could read it the other way. I could certainly see why someone might say, well, I'm going to trust Bet Online, even though they're not telling me they're as confident, even though this is going to lead me to an over. It's at least stats aligned. We can have that debate. And again, what I'm trying to do is not tell you what the strategy is. What I'm doing is telling you, you can see stuff you never saw before. That's what you can do with this feature at A-Train Station. It is looking at the weightings by hold, the wait by hold functionality we have here and our ability to change this. Now I'm curious, right? Let's go back here and let's rerun the wait by hold, right? We're going to run the wait by hold by our market EQ. We're going to refresh this and we're going to see what happens, because my guess is that these lines may have moved by now, right? They may have moved. So let me hit, there it goes. So you can see Hard Rock is still at minus 110. Novig, the liquidity in this market has gotten even greater. And so Novig is down to a 2.34% hold. That gives me much more confidence that our lines here are probably right. Now, FanDuel's greedier, fine, right? They don't want to take they'd rather take the overaction here. They're begging people to take the overaction here, right? At plus 112, this is the thing FanDuel will do. FanDuel will beg you to take the over and they'll still beat you out of it. They're like, they're the Walmart of sportsbooks. Everyday low prices. They'll give you great odds on the over and still take your money. It's hilarious because it happens all the time. So when I see this dynamic, again, doubling down, I'm taking that Chris Paul threes under. I'm doing it for sure. So again, you see, that it's not a huge edge anymore, but I do think that there's real value in that play for sure. So with that, that's really what I wanted to talk about in this video. Is this feature at A-Train Station is really unique because it gives you a perspective into looking at all the plays in the market. When you're doing a positive EV search, this is the kind of thing that nobody else has because they can't. They don't have the architecture to support it. We've made everything by design from the very first day we did this to be customizable, to be fast, to give you the data you need to drive a decision that you can't make with any other tool out there. And when you're a good, sharp bettor and you understand what you're looking at, you can take these tools and do amazing things. And that's really my goal, is to show you how this new functionality allows us to find these plays, look at them, and find value in our analysis of the market, which is so key. Anybody can say this number is bigger, I'm going to play that. But when you can look at a market and assess it in a way that tells you with high degree of confidence what truth really is, now now you are playing at a level that you can't with anything else. And that's really our goal with A-Train Station, is to make sure that the best bettors in the world have the best tool in the world to drive the best action they can get. So with that, thank you for joining me on this video. For now, this train's leaving the station. Until next time, save the units for the bros and do your betting like the pros. Thanks, everybody.